Welcome back to another episode of The Lofty Lender. Today's episode is a little different. It's deeply personal. I'm sitting down with someone I work alongside every day, someone I admire for his strength, his humor, and now his courage to share something that many find hard to put into words. Huntington's disease is a rare inherited brain disorder that slowly breaks down nerve cells in the brain, affecting a person's ability to think, move, and control their emotions over time. Or as we recently heard it called, the three M's: mood, movement, and mind. It's often described as having the symptoms of ALS, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's all at once. There's currently no cure, and the progression is both physically and emotionally challenging. Most people begin experiencing symptoms in their 30s or 40s, and because it's genetic, it can be passed down through families. While it's a devastating diagnosis, it also reveals that incredible strength, not only in the individuals who face it, but in the communities who rally around them. With that, we welcome in Eric Smith.
Hello.
Well, Eric, like I said, today's episode is a little different. Normally, I would hop in and start asking you why you got into mortgage and all that kind of stuff. But today, I really want to just understand a little bit more about you with your experience with HD. And I guess take us back to the beginning here and how you found out you have it, what kind of went through your mind, and, just what is your HD story?
Correct. Well, I come from a family of 5 siblings. My parents, my mom and dad, were married for over 50 years. My oldest brother is 13 years older than me, and I'm the youngest. I'm the baby, the golden child, right? So one Christmas, we saw my oldest brother doing something with his hands, and we couldn't figure it out. Like, what are you doing? And we do the dealer thing where he would show his hands and do that. And we were playing games, just a regular family holiday gathering. And then all of a sudden we're like, well, my wife and I talked about it, and we thought, man, something's going on. Don't know what it is. Something's happening. And then about 2 years later, my middle brother, Mark, started making this clicking noise. And then he'd say the word hot a lot. And we'd be standing around in the living room and he'd go, hot. I'm like, are you hot? All right, we'll turn the air down. And he'd repeat it. Like, okay, we just thought he was hot. And then come to find out, he started making more and more clicks and then started having movements. And he went to the doctor and they didn't know what it was. He had vertigo, he had blah. They kept saying it was this, that, and the other thing. Did some testing. It took about 6 months for him to get a diagnosis. And I was in the shower one day, my wife comes in and says, hey, your brother Mark has Huntington's disease. And I was like, well, I don't know what that is. Can't be that bad. I haven't heard about it, right? How wrong was I? So just found out that he had it and didn't know at the time my oldest brother had it. He later on, after my brother had called me about 3 months, my middle brother had called me and said, hey, you should find out more about Huntington's and get tested. I was like, well, why? I didn't know anything about it. I was ignorant. And it was just finding out information. So my wife and I decided that, hey, we're going to find out about this thing. In the meantime, my brother Bill, my oldest brother, got diagnosed with Huntington's disease.
One.
And learned that, it's genetic. Bill had Huntington's. My brother Mark was telling my mother to get tested. And this was before my wife and I got educated about it. And I was like, why? What is he just looking for somebody to blame? Is he just lashing out, that kind of thing? So my wife and I started getting educated. And then you find out, okay, this has to come from your mom or your dad. So my dad had already passed away, and he passed away from idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, which has nothing to do with Huntington's, scarring of the lungs, couldn't breathe, that kind of thing. So after being educated, I convinced my mom to, hey, we could rule out your entire side of the family if you get tested and you're negative. So that took a long time. She was a stubborn person, and took a long time, but she finally decided to do it, and luckily she came back negative and was able to rule out her whole side. My dad never showed any symptoms of Huntington's. So to me, I never ever saw anything. He was in poor health at the end for about 11 months, and we were over there every day. So I got to see him every day and help him, care for him, that kind of stuff. And I never saw anything with that. And he died when he was 73. So that's pretty late to get Huntington's or to show signs of. Yeah. So anyway, I thought at the time, I'm like, I'm not going to get tested, because testing, once you know, you can't take it back. So at the time, I hadn't decided to get tested. I'm like, why no? Why find out about it? And then every day you're kind of sitting there, you'll have a little twitch or a little movement, and you'll be like, oh God, is that it? Is that it? So I think it was about 3 years after that, sat down with my wife and decided, hey, we could rule out the boys, kind of like with my mom, rule out her side of the family. We wanted to rule out the boys. So we decided, yeah, let's get tested. But then again, you can't just go get tested, because there is things in life like life insurance, health insurance, disability insurance, all these things that, oh God, once they get a whiff of that in your family, you can't get those things. You have to answer that question on the questionnaire and do a blood test and all that stuff. You worry about it. But it wasn't just for us. So we decided to do it and get all those things in place, not only for us, but for our kids too, just in case.
Is that something that you guys did together? Or did you also bring the boys in to sit down and go through that at the same time? Or how did that all happen?
Yeah, that was just my wife and I. And we wanted to just surprise them, hopefully, with the gene negative response and go, hey, something you don't have to worry about. Jake was at boot camp. Zachary was in New Zealand when we got the results, and Cole was around, but we wanted to try and surprise him. But when you go get tested, it's a 3-stage process you go through. So there's a center of excellence in Iowa City, and they have a neurologist, a psychiatrist, and a gene counselor all there for you when you make the trip. And it's 3 trips. So the first trip is just them basically checking you out, seeing if what symptoms you may have now, or if there are any. That's the neurologist part of it, and educating you. And then the psychiatrist, you go through that to see if you're in depression, if you can handle these results, those kinds of things. So got through those, and then the genetics counselor's there just to answer questions about family and how genetics work and why is this, this stupid repeat number expanding, that kind of thing. So you do that, and then you go back for your second trip where they do you sit down, they ask you again, do you want to go through with this? Of course, yeah, we do. And then they do the blood draw, and that's on the second trip. And then you go home and you wait.
Oh.
I think it was 3 months. It was either 6 weeks or 3 months, something like that. So you're waiting for those results, right? Pins and needles, that kind of thing, drive over, and then you get the results. So you arrive at the office, and then they ask you again, do you want the results? Can't take it back, that kind of thing. Yep, sure do. And then you read your results, and of course we're like, yeah, and then say you're gene positive, and then the next thing you're listening for is, what's my repeat? Because if you know about Huntington's, the lower the score, if it's close to 40, the better. That means it's a lower repeat number, and it tends to happen later, or it doesn't happen as fast, the higher the number. So they came back and said, you're gene positive, 40, devastating rate, terrible. It kind of didn't hit me right away. Hit me on the way.
On the way home, as you're starting to think about your boys, starting to think about that conversation that you have to have. I can't even put myself in your shoes.
Oh, yeah. Had to pull the car over, that kind of thing. Woo.
Thankfully, you got Jody. She's
Amen.
She's an amazing woman for you. So she's, I'm sure she was the rock you needed to lean on there. I'm sure I can here in the car right now being the positive influence for you to say, hey, now we know. Now we can give the boys something and we can let them make their decision.
What golf course is that up there in Iowa City?
Finkbine?
Yeah, just pulled in there, big hug, and then drove home. But
She hopped in the driver's seat, said, Eric, move over. I'm going to take over
she
from
did
here.
not. If you know us, I drive everywhere.
Oh, okay.
But that's
fair.
probably my fault because I tend to critique people's driving.
You and I are so much alike, Eric.
Dude, I just can't handle it. Okay. So we were driving home, trying to figure out, how we're going to tell the boys that kind of thing. And because they were away, we had to wait for them to get back, and we had some time to think about it and sit down with them and tell them. So we brought them in. We had to ask, hey, we want to have a conversation. Can you just come over? Just you, no girlfriends, no anything. They're like, why are we coming over? What's going on? That kind of thing. So they come over. We said, unfortunately, you've got to worry about it. And nothing they have to worry about right away. They said, because my repeat was 40, so you have to worry about Huntington's. They said, you don't have to worry about getting tested right away, that you could do that. If you choose to do that later, you can do it. But we had in place all the other things that we had to, get in place first, the life insurance for them, just in case they have families, that kind of thing. Because once I'm not diagnosed with HD yet, I'm pre-symptomatic. I just have the gene repeat that will eventually get it if I live long enough. But as you know in my story, my dad, 73, I never saw it. So that was tough.
Like, that's actually really interesting. We've been doing so much education about HD here in the office and learning more about Huntington's disease, and that's not something that I had even realized. So you can have the gene but not necessarily get diagnosed with Huntington's disease.
Right. Yep, I'm gene positive, and the diagnosis is it's hard because the diagnosis really comes at the stage of chorea, and chorea is all the movements. My brother Mark had those the most, and then Bill started showing signs of that stuff with the hands. But then you have big body movements. In fact, they told them that they needed to eat 5,000 to 7,000 calories a day just because they're moving all the time. And that's hard. And especially when you are moving all the time, getting the food in your mouth. Yeah, that's just really hard.
Challenge. Yeah.
So that's my story. I mean, for the most.
So obviously you can't speak for your sons, but what do you recall them? What was their reaction when you told them? Was it, hey, thanks for telling us, now we're ready to, we want to make our own decisions. Each one have their own ideas on it. Was it, yeah. Were they angry? What was their reaction?
None angry because we had already educated them about it. They had gone some of the education days to learn about it, things like that. And they know it's not anything I can do or my dad could do, their grandfather. It's nothing they can control. They had mixed reactions. I think, sad on one hand for me, but also, God, what's that bring for me? In what direction do I want it?
So obviously there's this disease, there's a lot of mentalness to it. You think about all the things how it's going to impact you potentially down the road, how it's potentially going to impact your kids, your grandkids. I don't want to make it harder again on you here, but what keeps you up at night with this?
That's the hardest part.
How did you come to peace with that?
I don't know if you ever get peace with it, but you do as much preparation as you possibly can. What's it look like? Who's going to be my caregiver? Is Jody going to be that person? Am I going to be in a home? Am I going to, I've seen it both ways. My brother Mark was in a home. He decided not to get a feeding tube. Basically died of starvation. My brother Bill, who has a saint as a wife, he has a feeding tube.
And you've said before that she has to wait on him hand and foot, and she's with him all the time, right?
All the time. All the time. Tries to find someone to care for him for, so she can get out for an hour, go get groceries or or what, do something else. But that's tough because it's hard to find people that care for your loved one as much as you do.
So you mentioned that you had the insurance all set up in place for the boys before you told them. Is that something that once they know, now they have to answer? Like, I mean, they don't even know if they have the gene technically, right? So they just could have the gene. So as long as they don't get tested, they don't have to answer yes to a question on the questionnaire quite yet.
Right, because a lot of times they ask you about your family tree. Does your father have anything? And at this point, no, I don't. I'm not diagnosed. There's where that differentiation comes from gene positive to diagnosis. So the cognitive part of HD typically happens 5 to 10 years prior to even the chorea happening a lot of the time. So that diminished, or, your brain's dying, but your brain cells are. And the chorea happens after that's already taken place.
So is there ongoing testing for CT scans and things like that for you for the doctors to see that and say, hey, we can compare your brain from last year to 3 years from now, and we can say, we've seen a reduction in size or function or whatever?
That's going into some of the studies that they're working on. That's where HDSA comes in, because they have some of those studies going on that do that. I participated in a exercise study. It was a 6-month long. You had to work out at least 4 times a week for a certain duration, and warm-ups and cool downs, and report your feelings and all of that for 6 months. They did an MRI before the whole study started, and then they did one after. I never find out the results. They don't let you know, and it's all done anonymously. Like, this is somebody that's gene positive. We know that, but they know nothing else about it.
And just for those of you that are listening and wondering, Eric mentioned HDSA. HDSA is the Huntington's Disease for Society. And Huntington's Disease Society of America. And there's an Iowa chapter. That was hard to say.
It's a mouthful.
It is. The name serves a good reminder of all the symptoms that kind of come along with this as well. So what do you think is something that most people don't realize about the disease or don't know?
I think until you watch somebody go through it, you don't really understand. So imagine the Parkinson's thing. Everybody sees Michael J. Fox, right? You see what he's like and what he's like on the drugs that he's taking, and they help him get through that. There's so many other things like depression and anxiety and all of these, the sleep deprivation and all of those things just makes it a lot harder. And then seeing someone go from, a perfectly functioning human being to laying in bed all day, can't move, can't communicate, can't eat, can't swallow. It's horrific. And it lasts a long time, typically. My brother's been going through this since 2008, something like that. That's a long time, right?
Yeah, man, I've always appreciated how you've always had a positive mindset throughout the office all the time. You're always upbeat. You're always, from the outside, you're a happy-go-lucky kind of guy. And I've always appreciated that about you. Learning now about your story and hearing this today, I'm even more amazed because you've obviously got a lot going on that a lot of people don't know about, a lot of people don't see, and it's all been kind of behind the curtain, if you will, until now. So just kudos to you. How do you keep that positive mindset? I mean, what are you working towards that, keeps yourself happy? I mean, are you thinking about the testing and the drugs and all the things that are maybe coming down the road that can help to solve this, or what's keeping you happy?
That's exactly my mindset. I'm doing everything, every study I can possibly participate in. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to make it better for the next generation and the one after that, especially now that I have a granddaughter, right? Who's almost 2. But, I want to do everything in my power to make it better. And let's find a drug that either pushes pause on it, on the, killing of your brain cells, or a cure to actually get rid of this thing for good. So you can reverse it. I don't know that they'll ever find anything to reverse it, but who knows, with AI and all this other stuff, things are going to change. But I just try and compartmentalize it and just try and live my life to the fullest. There's tough times. This is one, but I try and be happy. I try to spend a lot of time with friends and family.
Well, if anybody is friends with you, they know you have a good time. So we all know that.
That I do. That I do. I'll own that one.
So if someone listening was recently diagnosed or knows someone who was, what would you want to tell them?
um, that it's totally up to you whether you want to get tested or not. About 10%, they say about 10% of the people at risk want to get tested. Um, it's it's a burden that you got to bear. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's your decision. It's easy for people to say, "Oh, go get tested, then you'll know." Well, can't give it back. You're stuck with it and the ramifications of it. But dude, you just got to push on, and there's hope now. They're seeing more results with medications and other clinical trials, which I hope one day I'll be a part of, unless they find a cure or a pause before. I'll take that too, which is effective, but they've got some interesting things coming down the road.
So one thing we've recently learned as going through some of this education with you is that like you said, about 10% of America, the people that are potentially could have the disease, the gene, they've been tested. But when we look around the world, we are really low compared to a lot of other countries who have percentiles in the 90s. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's just because our healthcare system is broken, or what? What do you think is the reason behind that?
Honestly think it's because of a stigma that becomes along with it. Um, just I've seen my brothers and I didn't even say my sister had it as well. So I've got 4 out of the 5 siblings now, but and I have one sibling that doesn't want to get tested and won't get tested. But I think that there's just this stigma that comes with it, and then I've seen them lose friends. Just that disassociate or don't know how to communicate or things of that nature. So they don't want to go through that. But again, there's a lot of other stuff that comes along with, life insurance. If you want to really set your family up for success after, you go start having symptoms. But I'd say that's probably the biggest one.
And one thing you brought up that I wanted to make the audience aware of as well is you talk about your siblings that have all tested except for the one. And HD is, again, from what we've learned, is passed down at a 50-50 likelihood, right? And every child is 50-50. So if you have 4 kids, it's not 2 of them are going to get it, 2 of them are not going to get it. Every child is 50-50 shot at getting it. And in your family, you're a little over, 80% at this point, but you just don't know whether or not your other brother has it. He might not have it at all just because of that likelihood of 50-50 either way. So I think that's important to note, that it's not, just because your dad may have had it and passed it on to all of you guys, that every one of you is going to get it. And then every time you have kids, now every one of your kids are going to get it. It's still a 50-50 shot every single time. Now Eric's kids, his 3 boys, they all have a 50-50 shot individually as well.
Yeah. So what that means is pick up a coin, flip it. That's your odds, each one. So that sucks, right? Yeah, that's
Better
not
hope
fun.
that coin is really heavy on one side.
Exactly. 2-headed. I'll take the 2-headed one with the negative. Yeah, my sister that doesn't want to get tested, I'm pretty sure she's showing signs of it. And her daughters have gotten tested, and one of them is one's negative, and one is in that range of 36 to 39. So she might or might not get it, but is a carrier of it. So what that means is my other sister, she has it as well. She just hasn't been tested or gone to the neurologist to get diagnosed.
So the child that doesn't have it, then,
yeah,
it's not gonna become a silent gene. I don't know what they call that, but she's not gonna pass anything on. She's completely
correct.
out of it, and she's not gonna have it.
That's right. She's not a carrier. So she has 217 numbers. Everybody has 2 numbers on their DNA, and hers are both 17. So she'll never, ever evolve into it. It's just gone. She doesn't have to worry about it. And she has 2 kids, so that's a good thing. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Amen.
Well, what do you hope that people walk away from this conversation feeling or doing?
I hope that they get a little understanding about what it's like, and then to hopefully spur them to get involved, because getting involved helps bring awareness, and of course, monetary wise, it helps with studies and drugs and things like that. And getting involved is as easy as, going for the walk. Like we have a walk coming up on May 3rd, the Team Hope Walk. Get involved. Do that. There's the gala November 15th. Get involved. Just attend, because some of those proceeds go through to HDSA Iowa and HDSA, the National Association, to benefit, struggling families. They do so much as far as support, and that Center of Excellence, which HDSA sets up in certain locations around the country. I think there's, I don't know, I'm going to take a guess, 42 of them now or something. 65 is a lot. And that's the only way to get that designation, because the difference between my experience, I'm having though the psychiatrist and the neurologist and the gene counselor or genetic counselor is way different than my brothers showing up at their neurologist, who has never seen a case of HD, doesn't know what to do. It's just so rare for them to go through that. They didn't really give good advice, and had to be clunking through the medications and things like that, and what worked, what didn't work. It was just a different experience. So having that Center of Excellence through HDSA is huge. And we're so lucky to have one in Iowa City. It's a short drive, right?
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And if people want to learn more about HD, they can go to hdsa.org. They can hop out to our company website, midwestfamilylending.com. If you go to our MFL Cares page, you can find more about Huntington's disease and find ways to get involved. We've got you talked about that gala coming up towards the end of the year that we're super excited about. I hope other people can join as well. You listening, if you're listening to the show and you think you want to get involved, get a hold of us, get a hold of myself or Eric. Come on out to that gala. It's Glen Oaks this year, so it should be an awesome time. And yeah, just get involved and start to educate yourself on what's out there, because there's some really cool stuff. We didn't really get into some of the drugs and too much of the trials and stuff, but there's some really cool stuff that they're working on right now. And Eric is hopefully going to be pioneering all of that for us. So Eric, thanks for joining the show today. And thank you all for listening to this very special episode. If you have questions, you want to get a hold of Eric, just go to our website, midwestfamilylending.com, and we'll see you next week on The Lofty Lender.